I wanted to jump on and create a little video to give an overview of the PUPA process. It's something I've blogged about and I talk about and use in some of the courses, and it's actually a framework for the PUPA Focusing Certification Program. And I don't have it in a video that you can see. So here we go. We'll create this little video, a little explanation of it. Okay. So the PUPA process was something that emerged over time, and it has many influences. It was influenced by the focusing process, the 6 steps, and also something called the open cycle that Gendlin talks about in the process model. So I'll say more about that in a moment. Also Theory U and Otto Scharmer's work. The 8 C's of self-leadership, which come from internal family systems and Richard Schwartz's work. So I'll give an overview of that. And then also, I won't speak to it, but I was also heavily influenced by some of the teachings from Rick Hanson and Forrest Hanson in their book, Resilient. How to grow an unshakable core of calm, strength, and happiness. So this you might have seen before. This is my slide that I like to use now to talk about focusing as a process, right? That we need some conditions. And so I like to use the metaphor of dancing, that to dance, we need some space. So in focusing, we need some space in the body. And then we need some good energy, that focusing attitude to be able to receive or welcome whatever's going to come. And so I think of that as the music. It can be actual music or, imagined. So it's just the feeling in the body of receiving. And then we can have our dance moves. Then we can do this thing we call focusing, which slowly moves us from feeling into something, especially physically, then to getting some knowing about it with the handle and resonating. And then finally, with asking, we can move into deeper things and eventually get into an action step, something we do for ourselves or do for another, or a request of another. So there's some movement there through each focusing session. There's a process of getting to know what the focusing session is about, and then getting clarity and going deeper until we find some carrying forward energy. In a process model, Gendlin talks about something called the open cycle. He first starts with the functional cycle. He talks about how certain things go in a circle, right? Like digestion. We eat, we digest, then we defecate, then we get hungry, we eat again, and it goes around and around and around. And he says the open cycle is not like that. It keeps going. He says it's like the fingers stretched out on a hand. They go as far as they go, and then they stop. And so I realized recently that the PUPA process very much is like that. We start with something and we go, and we do it. And then once we've done it, it's done. It stops. So a huge influence into the PUPA process was Theory U. And Theory U has a couple different versions. This is the version that has 3 acts, 3 points. And this was a distillation of many interviews of hearing from people what they said they did to innovate. And Otto Scharmer and colleagues heard over and over again that there was a lot of observation at the beginning, and then a pause, a moment of retreat where something came, something emerged, and then a movement into action, a movement into quick action, particularly prototyping, to just start to iterate. And so that is very important. And the insight that I had in doing the Theory U training and being with the process is that the inner knowing that we have at the bottom of the U, that felt sense knowing, we can access as anywhere in the process, right? That we really can sense in as we're figuring out what the problem is, and as we're getting into action, our felt sense can inform all of these parts of a process. And so that's where I differ in how Theory U crosses into focusing with the PUPA process, which I'll show you in one more slide. But first, just a quick overview of the 8 C's of self-leadership. So there are 8 C's, and these emerged by Richard Schwartz when he was hearing his clients talk about this quality of capital S self that they could find when some other parts stepped back. And they are beautiful qualities. And I'll just name them off here: clarity, calmness, compassion, connectedness, curiosity, creativity, confidence, and courage. And we can really access those feelings in the body and emotions, and they are not all exactly the same. I think when we experience these different states of being, that they can feel a little bit different, that courage doesn't feel the same as curiosity, for example. They're a little bit different. And so getting to know those places in us and going to memories and experiences where we felt that way can be very powerful. All right. So when we cross that theory U and the focusing process, really what emerges for me is something that is a fractal. And so this PUPA process is the change of one felt sense. It can be one focusing session. You zoom out, it can be the movement and the journey on one action item, like creating a website. And then if you zoom out even more, it can be the journey of creating a business, for example, or doing something of a larger scope. And this is a little manufactured, but what I had was the concept of the pupa. So the pupa is the cocoon, the chrysalis, where transformation happens between the caterpillar and the moth or the butterfly. And I loved that metaphor of a safe space for transformation, and really noticing that our focusing practice creates that space. It creates that place where transformation can happen bit by bit, right? Each little felt shift by felt shift, those changes really add up to transformation. And so I named the stages, and some of these are inspired by the theory U, and also the focusing. So we have pause, understand, permutation, prepare, and action. I'll go through 2 versions of this. I'll go through a 6 steps version and an 8 C's version. So if we look at pupa through the 6 steps, pausing is our clearing of space, right? Is getting ready to be in the body to listen, and also activating that receiving, welcoming, focusing attitude so that we have the energy to do the work. And then when we're understanding from the body's perspective, from a felt sense. So we're inviting the felt sense, and we're getting some knowledge with getting a handle, right? Once we get the sense of what that felt sense is about. And we might have, of course, many felt senses in a session or a process. But eventually there's a felt sense that comes, and then a shift that happens that brings some sort of paradigm shift that you kind of go, oh, this is what's really this focusing session is wanting me to know, or this is really a turning point in understanding towards being able to move forward. And so I called that permutation. And it's really when the resonating happens and you're kind of getting also the aha moment that's coming with your felt shift. And then you have something, then there's some sort of idea of how to move forward, but we're not always ready to go right from that, change to the butterfly to a flying butterfly. In the world of that transformation, the butterfly first comes out of the chrysalis and it dries its wings. It takes time before it's ready to be in action. And so that preparation phase, which is akin to the prototyping phase in theory U, and can be quite long or intense for people when we're really, as Gendlin says, wanting to be pattern makers. We're changing the pattern. And so doing something that's different than the way people have done things before, it can take a lot of courage and time to unpack. And so one way to do that is the asking question, can I stay that way? Can the way I feel after I have my felt shift and I have this sense of something I can do, we don't always feel that we can stay in that energy. There's other energies, there's other parts that come in and want to go back to being. And so there's that preparation phase, is that work to maybe heal the trauma, or to allow some parts. David Rome says, allow some parts to die. What's ready to die? What ways, there's an expression, what got you here won't get you there, right? What do we need to let go of now, and transform, so that we can take action? And then, of course, the action is noticing what is your right next step, and focusing is a beautiful way to ask that, and to then, of course, do the action. So here is the 8 C's version of the PUPA process. And what I realized was that the 8 C's could be plotted also, that where we are in the PUPA process needs different energy. So for example, when we're coming into the body, pausing and coming in, we need some calm, we need some grounded energy, and we also need some connection, some heart energy, which in polyvagal theory, we would talk about the ventral vagus nerve, right? Which Anne calls flock. Yeah. And then understanding, to get the felt sense, we really need that focusing attitude. And now it's a bit more about the curiosity, about exploring and letting something come, and then gaining the clarity that comes when we get those handles and those little senses of, yeah, oh, that's what this is. And then eventually the creativity that comes when we get that paradigm shift, that felt shift that suddenly changes the way we see the problem or presents the solution. That's really creative energy that's coming out. And then the preparation. So if you can't stay that way, well, maybe there's a critic involved. Very often an inner critic comes and says, well, who are you to do that? Or something like that. So there's a lot of work of compassion to help heal and integrate. And then the confidence, we can work on visualization of seeing ourselves being in action before we are. And so there's a building of confidence, of inner knowing that you can do this work, that can precede the actual doing. And then the action comes with courage. And I always like to point out that courage doesn't mean not without fear, right? Courage means you can do something with fear, despite the fear. And so for some of us, the action is doing a new thing, is doing something we haven't done before, and requires a pushing through. And that's really different than the place where we are not ready, right? So it's not when the body's saying no, no, no. It's when the body's saying, I think I'm ready, but I don't want to, but I want to. That's when we can really be using our courage to get into action. And then the last thing I'll just say here, I didn't point out on the other slides, is you can see there's like these little loops on the U. And it's just to point out that these processes, right, these longer term experiences, focusing of deeper issues, can take many focusing sessions, many felt senses within a focusing session, and that we come around and around. And in fact, it would be more organic than even this. This is a little too linear. We can go backwards. We can go back at any point to something from an earlier stage, and we're really moving around a lot. But at the same time, there's a sense of the carrying forward, that over time, gradually, we are moving towards something and getting into action. So that's my quick overview of the PUPA process. And while I have you, just wanted to give 2 heads up for some courses that use the PUPA process. So the first is the Transform Yourself with the 8 C's of Self-Leadership. That begins next Tuesday evening, October 3rd. And in this course, we every week go to one of those 8 C's. So we go to a memory and we activate the energy in our body, and we get an experience, and then we create a felt sense body card of that energy, so that we can more easily activate it. We have a solid touch point in that body card and in that memory to go back to. And then there's 2 ways you can do this course. One way is to choose a larger issue that every week over the 8 weeks, you'll come back to as we move through the PUPA process. We use slightly different guided exercises and activities as we go through to help move through something. And in so doing, we also cross in the energy of the 8C of the week. So you could have a week where we're working with the confidence energy, and then whatever issue you're bringing that week, and we blend them, we bring them together. You can also use the course to really just strengthen yourself, and so bring something smaller each week to be focusing on when we get to the focusing piece after the 8C energy exercise. And that works beautifully as well. So that course is coming up, and I hope you'll join us. And then the other course, just to give you a heads up, that uses the PUPA process, is the Embodied Leadership for Creative Teams. And this is really a course to learn how to co-regulate. So co-regulation is about being in partnership with others. So when we say teams, it can be, a team at work. It can be a very formal thing, but team could be your family. Team could be your relationships with your friends. Team can be any kind of community or relationship where you are with others and interaction with others. And so we learn to co-regulate through the course, and we do 2 mini PUPA journeys. The first one we do is all about self-regulation. It's noticing, where does our defenses come up and interfere with our interactions with others? So in essence, where do we maybe cause others to become defensive because of our defenses? And so they feel unsafe. And that affects the interaction. And in the second one, we notice what others might need, what cues of safety might be really helpful in this situation, and practice bringing those cues of safety to be more in those 8 C's of self, for example, or other qualities that can help the interaction. And so we're always noticing what's happening in the interaction and how we might change it, right? We can only change ourselves. So what can we change? What do we have the power to change right now? Either in taking our defenses offline or sending more cues of safety that will enable more interaction. And then when that happens, we are feeling more grounded, more connected, and that allows for that creativity to flow amongst people. And so that course will come in winter 2024. It will be Tuesday evenings as well, and the exact dates are to come. Okay, so thanks for listening, and maybe we'll see you in one of those courses. And if not, I hope you enjoyed the overview of the PUPA process and it's helpful to you in your work and in your processing. Take care. Bye-bye.